Clayton, I was just going to ask you to record, James. Thank you. Sorry, I hate to interrupt.
Oh, no problem. So just reiterate, welcome to the Sited Reservation Water Management Board meeting 1/11/24. So do I have a volunteer for an opening prayer?
I'll do it.
All right, please. Thank you.
Sure. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we just want to thank you for this day and thank you for this opportunity to come together and serve our community. Today, it is appropriate to lift up everyone that is trying to get home, that is currently out, especially first responders working this day that we have today. Lord, just ask that they be kept safe and that you bless this time that we have together, that we can go through our agenda with discretion and wisdom and serve our community well. Amen.
Lamridge, Georgia. Okay, attendance, please.
I can do attendance. Clayton Matt,
Here.
Roger Noble,
Here.
Georgia Smees,
Here.
Ken Pitt.
Ken's muted, but I see that he's here.
I can see that he's here. And Rich Jansen.
Here.
And then Shane Hendrickson.
Here.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. So we will go through this just be a little more tedious today being Zoom. I don't know if we're all in practice with Zoom meetings, but we'll just take this one step at a time. So as always, for the record and for those members of the public online, all of our meeting minutes are posted on the DNRC and CSKT websites. Now for the question of any potential conflicts of interest. If you have any, let us know. For the record, Cam?
No.
Roger?
No conflicts.
Georgia?
No conflicts.
Shane?
No, sir.
And Rich?
No conflicts.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Any comments, questions, or changes to the agenda before we adopt it? If not, we'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Ethan.
I do recommend we reverse items 6 and 7. Sorry for not catching this earlier, but item 7 is an update to the 2024 forms. And on the off chance that discussion on item 6 ran long, it would be ideal to get item 7 maybe out of the way so that we can go ahead and get those posted to our website and up and functional.
A suggestion by Ethan to just change the order of 6 and 7. Board members, what do you say?
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
Rich, you good?
I am good, sir.
All right, we'll do it. So any other changes? If none, we'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
have one other.
Roger.
So item 3.2, Health Insurance Committee. Ken and I were not available to get together because of the weather, and we were also awaiting some additional information because one of the providers was on vacation for 2 weeks at Christmas time. So we would like to just
Want to scratch 3.2?
Scratch that and put it on for the next meeting.
All right, proposal to scratch 3.2. Any other comments on that? If none, with those changes, we'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with as revised.
Motion by Roger, second by Ken. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, we have an agenda. So public comment for items not on the agenda. I know we have maybe one or two public members, so anybody has a comment, public comment to make, please raise your hand. We'll get you on, get your comment.
If any of the attendees would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. I'm seeing no public comment.
Okay, no public comment. Moving on. Board business, approve minutes, agenda minutes from December 20. So we need the December 20 minutes, and of course, we're going to have to see those. If you've had a chance to look at them and you're ready, just take a motion to approve. There they are. So you want to scroll slowly up through that, give everybody a chance to see that. Once again, thank you for highlighting those board actions. I think that's helpful.
Motion by Rich to approve the board minutes.
Motion by Rich to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Second by Georgia. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, approved. Okay, item 3.2 has been scratched for the day. 3.3, agenda distribution clarification. Ethan, what do you need there?
Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you. I just wanted to double check while everybody's here. We want to make sure that the board members get things in the order that they would like to receive them. I've been trying to send the agenda out in advance and give anybody an opportunity that would like to offer changes or additions or corrections. I'm also, as we have our new website online and we're linking meeting materials using the website, I thought I'd take this moment to offer the board to give us staff any direction that they would like to give us about how they expect the agenda to come out, how they would like to see the meeting materials. And for instance, I understand, Mr. Chairman, from you today that you'd like to have the agenda attached to an email that's sent to you, and we can certainly accommodate that. Those kind of administrative directions to make sure you get what you need are much appreciated.
I think for me, and maybe others, having the agenda on a piece of paper in hand helps me kind of keep track as we go through the meeting. That's my main thing. And we were able to grab it from the webpage when you pointed that out. So I thank you for sending it, but we were able to grab it from the webpage and get that printed out. So as long as I know I can do that, I think I'm fine. And I only need it printed out when we're having Zoom meetings, because when we're meeting in person, it's already there. So other than that, I didn't have a particular issue with it. So, but I think so to touch on just where the minutes and meeting material are, you're posting them on the web page and a link, and I think I was able to get to that link and see that. So board members, any comments, questions, suggestions on that? Anything you need?
Good for me.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
so I relayed this earlier, but usually in other boards that I've been on, especially like the Flathead City County Health District, the chairman and vice chairman receive a draft copy of the minutes, or not the minutes, but the agenda about a week in advance. And then if there's an appeal to or a change, it has to be approved by the chairman or the vice chairman. that's kind of the standard protocol. So I guess I think we should start to use that format for future meetings.
Okay. Other thoughts, questions is a week ahead of time, and I think that's probably ideal. I just sense, just a question more than anything, I sense that we don't always have an agenda a week ahead of time. We have to advertise it. How far in advance?
Of 48 hours at a minimum, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that should be the final agenda. That shouldn't be the draft agenda.
Sure, and I tend to agree, we need to see it ahead of time, and it'd be good to see that and try to nail that down, because sometimes there are things we want to add to it or change around, but if a week is doable, I'm game with it. Any other thoughts on that?
And that'd be fine with me. This is Rich, but if it's doable.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
An example where at least the office struggles with that, such as like the 16th. I'm not exactly, we did set a meeting date for the 16th, but I'm not quite sure what the board would like to have on that meeting agenda. So in a situation there, I'd hope maybe when we got down to the next meetings, I would probably receive some direction from the board as to how to tailor that, and that's a common occurrence with us, at least. And so I do strive for the 1 week advance, but
Yeah, and that's understandable, Ethan. I think, usually our meetings are on the order of 2 weeks apart or once a month. So that's
Yeah,
kind of an exception to the rule.
Yeah, I think that shorter notice, I think it's understandable, as you say. Well, let's make that a target. I mean, if everybody's good with that, we'll make it a target, try to get it out to at least the chair and vice chair a week ahead of time. The other board members want to see that.
I think it's a good target, Mr. Chairman, but I'm kind of sensing the logistical problems of doing it.
We'll make it a good target. Do you want to see it?
Why? No, I'm comfortable with you and Roger handling the original version of it.
As am I. This is Rich.
Okay,
Same,
all right.
same for
We'll
me.
just stick with us and we'll go from there. All right.
thank you.
Yep,
Thank you so
anything
much.
else on that?
Nope.
3.3, Ethan?
Sorry, no, that's what I needed. I do appreciate the direction. Just trying to make sure we're doing our best to achieve what the board would like to see. And so what I heard is that we will distribute a week in advance as our target, and that distribution will go to the chair and the vice chair. It doesn't need to go to the entire board. And then the chair and the vice chair will respond if they want to see changes. Perhaps you could respond even if you're good to go, just so we know that you got it and we can feel confident to post.
I think we're good. All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I need to run
Yes.
to my house and get a power cord. It should be gone no more than a minute or two.
All right. Thank you. All right, item number 4, let's move on. Appeals and hearings document, legal counsel. Is Haley on?
Yes, hi, can everybody hear me?
Hi, Haley.
Hi.
Do we need to bring a document up?
I think James can access at least the first one. Yeah, there we go. So just to provide a little context, the board and the Office of the Engineer have now officially gone through a formal notice and comment period. The Office of the Engineer did not receive any comments on these two documents. So these two documents are now before the board for board action for approval, and then they will become operational.
Can you, and I see the titles and I'm sure, and I know we reviewed them. Could you just remind us for the record what these two documents are?
Of course. So the one that's able to be viewed on the screen right now, this is the appellate operating rules. This document pertains to essentially just how the board is going to go through an appeal. So from their conference to the oral argument, to then the final decision of the board and how to draft that. So that's the procedural document for the operations. And then the second document is the appellate rules of procedure. Yep, there we go. And this is just more so the kind of formal overarching appellate document for the board and how specifically they can function in certain settings like briefs or oral arguments or final decision making. So.
Okay, very good. And documents like this, I'm assuming the board would want these documents in your binders.
Yeah.
Yes, for me.
It would be helpful.
All right. All right. So Haley's at this point, unless we have other comments or concerns, we're ready for public comment and action. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, board members, are you just indicate if you have any further discussion on this before we take public comment? Okay, any public comment on the hearing, appeals and hearings documents that went out to public comment, final public comment for the record for the agenda here?
If an attendee would like to make a public comment, you can raise your hand. I'll allow you to speak. I'm seeing no public comment.
All right, we'll close public comment. So item 4.4, board action on final appellate rules of procedure document. So if you're ready, I'll take a motion to approve that.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we proceed with approval of the, sorry, I just lost my place on the agenda, the appellate rules and procedures document.
Motion by Georgia,
I'll second the motion.
second by Roger. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Approved. Item 4.45, board action on final appellate operating rules document. If you're ready, I'll take a motion to approve that.
This is Rich. I'll make a motion on the document that Clayton mentioned previously.
The final appellate operating rules document, motion by Rich to approve.
I'll second.
Second by George. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Approved. Thank you. All right. Thank you for all your work on this, Ethan and Haley. Good job, board. moving right along. Number 5, Office of Engineer updates. Ethan.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I have a couple of updates for you today. We'll have more extensive updates for you on your 116 meeting. But the first item that I wanted to bring to your attention is that we had some interaction with the public regarding personal information and its publication on our website, where we have a list of applications received. And I thought it would be, we took that opportunity to prompt us to better initiate a policy procedure for information that we collect as a public organization on our water right application forms. And a step in this direction was to ask Haley to write a memo, a legal memo for us that clarifies what we consider to be personal information, what information we collect that is public record, and then also clarify what our office's position is on providing lists for the public, such as a list of applicants or that type of thing. Generally, we've got a memo on this now. My intention is to take the memo information and put it directly into the WPMP, which will ultimately find itself in front of you for consideration. But generally, the discussion is that our form information that we collect is public, and publishing that on the website is acceptable and part of our charter under the ordinance. We did go ahead and take a technical step to remove Google's posting of or ability to go in and mine information from our application received page. So that we do think that will perhaps help folks not have to see their name on Google anytime they search and see their water right application, but it still does maintain through our website an ability for anybody that's a member of the public to come on to our website and look for application information. We've also clarified that we won't provide lists with people's contact information unless in advance we were to get those people's permission to do that. That said, I just wanted to give you a quick little discussion about that to let you know it's something that we're working through. We thought it was important because the website press release did just go out today, and we wanted to have that in order before taking steps to more widely attract folks to our website. We want to make sure that we had, had a thoughtful approach to how we're going to handle people's personal contact information that is on our water right forms.
Okay, for that item 5.1, thank you. And I understand there's a memo that we will be seeing as part of a future package. Given that it's Haley's memo, Haley, any further comments on that for the board?
No, Mr. Chair. Pretty much just looking at the responsibility as a public agency type group and how we protect personal identifying information in public records and public documents.
Okay. Board members, questions?
None from me. This is Rich.
I don't have a question, but I just applaud that you did this. This is getting increasingly challenging to do. So appreciate all the work that went into making that happen. Thank you.
Okay, given that, no more comments. Item 5.2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. 5.2, Mr. Frakes, if possible, if you could bring up our customer feedback survey, that would be great. I wanted the board to know that our office, in addition to having some interest in doing our best to protect people's privacy, also intends to solicit some public feedback about how we're doing. And so as a result, we have this public feedback, a little form that folks could fill out either in person, or we intend to make this a feature that you can operate off of our website. We thought that this would be a good thing to have and maybe help us improve our public services.
Can we slowly scroll down to the whole document?
Yes, just so you know, this is the same thing. We printed it twice on one sheet of paper so that we can cut it in half, use half the paper.
Okay. Board comments. I think it's always a good idea to get that feedback. Do we have something similar on the webpage or something?
Mr. Chairman, board members, we will take this this template and we're going to put this out there on our webpage. Mr. Frakes is working with the web designer to see what options we have to carry that over, so people could do a little click and respond that would give us the similar information. And we will record this in our best way that we can, which will, most of these questions are not so much quantifiable, but more of a list of things we did well, things that we can improve. And we'll try to provide that periodically as feedback comes in and it makes sense to share that information with the board members.
Other comments, questions, board members? Ethan, you don't need action on that today.
No, we will distribute this to the board members, and if you want to interact with it, we're happy to take your feedback. We don't think this is something that particularly needs board approval. You've got a lot of other things on your plate. That said, no way are we trying to circumvent your participation on making this look the way that you would like it to look.
No problem. Thank you. Board members, questions or comments?
I think it looks great. I'm eager to see what kind of feedback we get.
All right, thank you. Moving on. So item 5.3, other updates, anything, Ethan?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, board members, I just wanted to give you a quick little laundry list. I mentioned we've done some real scrubbing of the website in an effort to make sure that everything was ready to go out, and that press release was distributed earlier today. We have undergone an update with timesheets at our office so that we have the ability to better track people's time allocations on different and specific work projects, such as the WIRIS or application reviews. And this will help with the board to get an idea of where employee personnel hours are committed. I have initiated a kind of a better run at finalizing the 2024 budget, and I'm conducting an internal audit for 2023 to make sure that we've got all of our finances in order. I have done quite a bit of work with our IT group, and I'm going to initiate some training for our staff regarding the share drive and some other Microsoft features. As that rolls out, I'll include board members that might want to participate. We have Also, we will be moving to two-factor authentication. That part you'll have to participate in whether you like it or not, but it'll help our security along. We are nearing the closure point for our virus. The part where our office provides what is needed to the contractors. The meetings have shifted now to once per week, and I think that they'll quickly shift towards as needed. So that's good news, and the information that's been provided to the contractors is headed towards their developers. So we're excited about that. We have done a ton of work updating our forms and the formats to deal with both the application fees and also to upgrade some standardization that is a natural thing to happen here at this change of the year. James will talk more about those in a moment. And I continue to try to move the ball on addressing personnel issues in the hiring for the office. So that's just a quick update. I hope that next week we'll have some additional budget information for you, along with our application summaries that you typically see. That's all from me, Mr. Chairman, unless you have questions.
Questions, board members? Thanks, Ethan.
I guess,
Ethan? Go ahead, Roger.
Your Chairman. I guess in addition to next week, maybe we could have an update on the 2 job advertisements. I don't have the status of those, and if you've had any responses, and I definitely look forward to hearing about a more detailed budget next week.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I'll do my best to get that all in order.
I have a question, Ethan. So you said you're doing a 2023 internal audit. Can you tell us what that means and who's doing it, and how is it characterized as an audit?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is just me going through and double checking all expenses against the balance sheets and trying to set that up in a detailed way so that folks would be able to look at the expenses in contrast with the appropriation and see a balancing at the end of the entire year for 2023. So it's internal because it's just being done by myself and staff. That's what I mean by the internal part. It's an audit just because it's a chance to go back and double check all the numbers and put together a summary for the year of 2023. And I hope that helps to answer the question, Mr. Chairman.
It does. Does it involve our accounting firm?
Mr. Chairman, board members, I do think I'm going to end up having to ask them for some additional reports specifically to payroll. Our current reporting that we receive from them sort of combines multiple employees in multiple categories. And I really am going to need to have them pull that information out. And part of the other target for this internal audit is to provide us with an easier look at itemization of expenses, especially as far as payroll goes and workman's comp, different taxes, those kinds of things, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions?
Nope.
Thanks, Ethan, and thanks for the update. Thanks to you and all the staff. And if I haven't said it before, a good start to the new year. So happy New Year to everyone if I didn't already said it. So appreciate it. All right. So as was suggested, we'll reverse the order of 6 and 7. So we'll move on to item number number 7, and it says here, Mr. Frakes.
Yes. Board members, next up for your consideration is a bulk review of the water right applications and forms that you've already approved. The reason you're seeing these again is because of House Bill 114. And as you might know, House Bill 114 is planning to increase the filing fees for many of the DNRC water right forms. And our ordinance mandates that we mimic the fees that the state charges. So as part of that, we've gone through and updated the filing fees for all of our water rights. And then along with that, we've decided to standardize the format of our forms. I'm talking the fonts and the alignments, just to make them all look cohesive and part of the same. So what I'm going to do now is show you a spreadsheet instead of showing you each form individually to try and explain the whole story here. So this spreadsheet shows the status of all of our forms that we have and eventually will have. The forms that you need to take action on for this item are the ones that are highlighted in this light yellow color. That would be either a format change or a fee and a format change. For instance, let's look at this line right here. We've adjusted the domestic allowance from $125 up to $250, and this is to match the DNRC's groundwater certificate form, the 602, which went up from 125 to 250. So at this time, instead of showing you each individual form, I can pull open one of them so you can see the new formatting, and then maybe as an as needed basis, we can open additional forms if you have questions on those.
Maybe just do an example of one where it's an updated fee and one where you've changed a fee and a format.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to pull up probably our most used form, the 60DF Part A. This is for domestic allowance. We've added our watermark to the forms, which is going to help us track if applicants are using their original signature, because the watermark won't come through on a photocopy. You can see here the filing fee has been updated to $250. All of the fonts have been changed to Arial font, which is meant to be a good font for readability. And we've also increased the font size from 11-point to 12-point font in an effort to make it more usable.
Georgia applauds all of that.
So I'm
Thank
gonna,
you, Jane.
yes, I'll scroll through. So you can see the alignment, has been improved. A lot of these changes maybe don't seem, it's hard to catch a lot of these changes potentially, but a lot of effort went in to make sure that all of our forms now use the same style.
Okay, so this is an example of one where the fee was changed and the format, or just the fee?
Yep. So on all of the water rights that are active, we updated the format. And then on a subset of them, we updated the fees.
Okay. All right. Very good. So maybe back to the list.
Yeah.
Oh, before you do that, any questions on this one, board members?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe back to the list. Anything else any board members wants to see?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go for it.
So James, when you showed the last form you just showed us showed the updated fee at $250. I know in a prior meeting when we were discussing the budget, we recognized there would be this period when there could be a a gap between when we get our appropriation funding. And I was just wondering, this isn't a question about the form itself. I guess this is a budget question, but has there been any calculation with these increase in fees due to House Bill 114, how that might offset some of that shortfall? Because they're almost, it's almost 100% increase in the fee, correct?
Yeah, most of these fees have doubled.
So I was just curious what that would do to our budget if there'd been, and that's not something I think we're prepared to answer today, but it might be something to, evaluate that calculation in the future if that's.
I don't know how difficult that'd be. It seemed like you could take the money we pulled in from those forms and just project that forward with the new values.
Yeah,
Double it.
That would be assuming the same rate of
In
new applications.
applications, yeah. I mean, that's all we can do.
If you will, let me interject a little bit with this. One thing that the board had directed us to is not rely on application fees for balancing the budget. So my approach right now, board member Smees, is to take that money and set it aside, really used primarily to readjust the timing of our budget. But ultimately, kind of my marching orders right now is that our budget needs to balance based solely on the appropriations, and that we would use that additional money for, I'll say, less essential components of our budget.
Good reminder. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
That's still a good point. I think it'll be good to keep an eye on just to know what that is. Any other comments? Anything any board member wants to see here? So, not hearing any other board comments. James, you're wanting a single action to approve all these?
Yes, I think that would be the easiest way to do this, would be a bulk action.
Okay. So we'll move to public comment. Anybody out there in the online may have a public comment, please let us know.
If an attendee would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand. I am not seeing any public comments.
What I have, so moving forward, no public comments. What I show on the agenda is 11 forms. Okay. So whoever makes the motion, without reading the names, maybe we could just at least read the numbers, and we'll just take a single motion to approve them in bulk. When you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make one brief clarification. In situations where there's both a Form A and a Form B on the list that you're looking at, that's actually two forms.
Okay.
So,
all right.
14 total, Mr. Chairman. I can read them for you if you would like me to, or.
Good point. I think let's just make sure we read the numbers into the record when we take the action. So who wants to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to update the fees and the formatting of the 14 forms presented today. But I have a question, so I guess there's only
Go ahead.
there's only like 9 listed on the agenda. So how does that jive with what is
I think we need to look at that then, because on the agenda I'm looking at, that's where I got the 11.
And I counted 9 on that, so. Oh, my agenda is different than your agenda.
So, this line right here, A and B,
It'd
that.
be 2 forms, yeah.
2 forms, so same thing for 60
Yeah.
SF has 2
Yeah.
forms, and the geothermal has 2 forms.
Yep, that makes it the 14. Otherwise, there's 11 lines there. Yeah, so 14. Is that your motion, Roger?
Yes,
Okay, so motion by Roger to approve the 14 forms listed on the agenda under item 7.1 of today's agenda.
I'll
Also-
second.
I heard 2 voices come through. I hear Georgia. Second by Georgia. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. So any opposed? Okay, they are approved.
Thank you, board members.
So that goes. So we go back to item number 6, reversing the order. Legal and water engineer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, and Haley. So what we've got here, the board had wanted to emphasize doing some work on the complaint form and process, 609F. And Haley and I and the staff have all spent some time trying to get updates towards this policy procedure standalone document that were discussed at the last board meeting. Some of the updates include an informal process, which the board seemed interested in, including an informal process as just juxtaposed to a formal process. And we've got that in here now. We've updated some of the forms that the folks would file with our office. We've got a notice of a complaint that our office would send out to the respondent who would be the subject of a complaint. We have also just generally tried to improve the language. There are still items to address. And Mr. Frakes, I'll probably need you to pull up the policies and procedures so that we can take a look at that fundamental piece. At least I don't see it on my screen.
Yeah, you want the policies and procedures for the complaint process, yes?
Please, and we'll see what how the board would like to handle this topic today. But generally, we do have comments and proposed track changes that we could go through specifically. I do have a couple of items that still need to be tended to. This update has got the board had asked specifically to include the ordinance referencing, and Haley's done a great job of bringing that forward and adding other aspects that the board had asked for at our last meeting. I guess if the board would like, we could go through this in a bit of a workshop pattern like we have before, with the understanding that at this point, this would be like taking one individual section of the WPMP out, and it allows the board, if they so chose, to take an action on this one specific section in advance of the other WPMP, or if the board decided instead they'd rather tackle that whole package altogether, we can do it that way. But we're really trying to respond to the board's initial request that we front load this complaint procedure ahead of other things. And I stand for your direction, and tell us how you'd like to go through this topic today. We'll do our best to accommodate.
Yep, I have a question. So we have item 6.1 and 6.2. And then the procedure we're looking at on the screen, is that one of those, or is that the procedure that would implement those?
Mr. Chairman, this is 6.1, the complaint process that would take the form of water policy and procedures 31-102.
Okay.
Which will ultimately be part of our larger document.
Okay. I can only see a piece of it on the screen. So how lengthy is this?
6 pages long.
6 pages. So board members, how would you like to proceed? Any thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, maybe Ethan or James could focus us in on sections that may need a closer look.
Ethan, James, and Haley, if you've
Haley too, excuse me.
if you've got some priority items within this, let us direct us to that, and we can talk about it. Otherwise, we just go down, I think, one at a time.
Mr. Chairman, also it'd be helpful to me if right up front, I was advised whether or not this language is either out of the compact or the ordinance, so we don't waste time trying to change something only to find out we can't.
And if it's in the ordinances, it looks like it's being cited there. It says ordinance and it says the section 1. So I'm assuming that means that came out of the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, board members, we did try to highlight sections that are specific to the ordinance. There might be a few. Some of the track changes might not have all of that accomplished, but Haley will help us as we go through, I hope, to identify anything that might be very specific to the language of the ordinance.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, if I could just say one clarifying piece here. So from our meeting last time where we actually went through it in a detailed fashion on this procedure form or procedure document, we had kind of interspaced paragraphs of highlight or citations. And I was going through in this kind of second round and trying to put the ordinance sections after each paragraph that it references. So I did take out highlights as I was doing that. I think there are a few towards the end, but most should have the ordinance citation at the end of the paragraphs, just so you know that the highlight will be removed and that it will be the ordinance section after the paragraph.
Thank you. Okay, are there, I'm assuming at some point we need to get through this entire document, but if there are priority things you need us to start with, let us know. Otherwise, we just start at the top.
Sure. I think, Mr. Chairman, if we could if we go through, we could probably bang this out pretty quick. There's 3 items in here that will need some special attention. If James is willing to keep driving, I'll walk us through this if that works for the board.
Let's do it.
Okay. Right off the bat, we have a title change where Haley recommends we call these procedures, and that does match. So I don't think that's a big deal. We've got this section here that's an ordinance section on who may bring a complaint. We think that that's pretty good to handle. This next section, there is an addition. I think this is a good addition. Haley had suggested that we include language which is also directly from the ordinance but pertinent to this procedure. about what happens if there's a complaint about a short-term lease of diverted water. And Haley, I do understand this is directly from the compact. Is that correct?
Yes, this particular paragraph here is, and the reason why it fits in this procedure document is because anybody who wants to bring a complaint under this specific action does have to follow the process in ordinance section 31102. So just makes sense.
Okay.
All right, James, if you could scroll down a little bit more. This is where we start getting into a bit of some new, I believe you requested staff to go out and come up with a suggestion on how to handle, this one desire to provide people a way to file a complaint that's a little less formal and doesn't have any money attached to it. And so we have done that. We've got a 609F informal complaint. And then we have this other more formal complaint process, a 610F. Now, 609F does not contemplate charging a fee. 610F does carry, Mr. Frakes, could you remember, is it 65 or 55?
I can tell you in 1 second.
It's right in there. You have to go back to the
609F.
$55
55.
for the 610. Thank you. Appreciate that. So what do we have what's the difference? We have this first section, which is the informal complaint, and it made sense to us to put the informal complaint in here. It does specify that there's no fee, that we may investigate, but it's not necessarily a shall. And if you could scroll down a little bit more, Mr. Frakes. And one important part about an informal fee or informal complaint is that the office would not have to follow the timeline requirements set forth in the ordinance in 31102. And so that would be a difference between a formal and an informal complaint. Additionally, we intend to have some easier standards on filling out an informal complaint, in that maybe the applicant doesn't need to identify as much information as they would in a formal complaint. There's also no hearing that's guaranteed. It's not disallowed to have a hearing as a result of an informal complaint, but it's not necessarily a guarantee like you'd see in the next section, 610F. So 610F sets the formal complaint process going forward, and that is a full articulation of the person making the complaint and the respondent, the person upon whom the complaint is based. And that has a fee, has an immediate required action of our notice, of our office providing a notice to both the complainant and the respondent that a complaint has been filed, and requires us to set a hearing date. I'm just going to keep plodding along, and please do interrupt me if you wanted to stop. But
with what you've said so far, any questions by board members?
No.
No,
No.
I got a question. And
Roger.
just to digress back up to the first page, probably. So that right, that paragraph that's added, an appropriator, and then it talks about a short-term lease. What is a short-term lease? I don't find a definition of that in the compact.
Mr. Vice Chairman, there is, I believe there's provisions for a short-term lease of water where an appropriator can enter into an a lease arrangement with an existing water right user to use their water, the amount of diverted and consumed for a short-term lease. I'm not quite prepared to describe that. Haley, have you got that language on the tip of your fingers to help Roger?
Well, I guess the reason I asked that too is it seems like it gives preference to a short-term lease holder over an existing, an older priority date or something to that effect. That it just hit me as like, I don't understand the basis for this, I guess.
Sure. So the short-term use provisions are under 22121 of the ordinance. And I believe there's about like I think there's 4 different subsections within that describe short-term use of water. And then there's also
She went mute.
Yeah.
Haley, you went mute.
oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. And then under 22122 is where you get these sections on short-term lease of appropriation rights. So that's where it gets into potentially filing a complaint under the 31102 procedure. Roger, you are correct. There is no strict definition of what a short-term lease is within the compact. It's not a defined term. But there are parameters that are spelled out in the ordinance. So, I mean, I understand maybe where your uncertainty is coming from, because it is a bit of a wonky section, but I don't know if it's necessarily to the level of concern that you might have. This essentially just allows for a complainant to file a complaint with the OE to essentially just discontinue use, and then once that has been resolved, the water use can resume. So it's not necessarily redefining any priority or anything like that.
Yeah, it just seems like that's such a minor thing. It says it's just dealing with road construction, which is basically dust suppression. So it just seems like we're giving a lot of consideration to something that's pretty minor, I guess, is my thought.
Sure. And I think the reason for the inclusion of it is because there is a right to file a complaint directly for this type of use in the ordinance, and it does reference that under 5A of that section, where it says, if you want to make a complaint, it goes right to that 31102 procedure. So I think it's just more so covering all the bases.
Okay.
And again, this is language right out of the ordinance, correct?
It is.
Okay.
Thanks, Roger.
Ray, while we took a break here, am I doing an all right job explaining the difference between the informal and the formal complaint process?
I have no complaint.
Well played, sir.
There's a form coming up for you, Clayton.
Yeah, is it online?
Yeah. Okay, so we got through the notice. I think the notice format that we have, there is a specific reference to a notice format. We did draft a notice format. It's pretty straightforward. It looks very official. It's intended to get your attention if you got it in the mail. One of the issues that we started to discuss at our last meeting needs to get resolved right here. And Mr. Frakes, if you could choose the option to show comments, that'd be appreciated. Hopefully it doesn't make things unreadable anywhere else. But you'll remember we had a discussion about certified mail.
Yep.
And signature required receipt mail. And there's a comment in here somewhere that says, you know, we need to figure out, you know, if this board wants our office to pursue a certain type of certified or other type of mailing, I need to know very specifically. I had suggested, but it doesn't need to. My suggestion is only that, you know, that we would just use our regular mail system, postal system, but happy to make accommodations if the board would like to see something different here.
Comments, thoughts? When I hear discussion about the formal complaint and we have to send out a notice and that starts a timeline, it seems like we need to send something out certified. Is that what you're asking?
I am asking if it needs to be certified, and we do send out currently any of our authorizations that go out the door do have timelines associated with them. I recognize that a complaint seems a little different, but if you apply for authorization to construct a well, you know, you're going to get a regular letter with signatures on it, and it sets a timeline. So for what it's worth, we are already setting timelines. The subject matter does make a difference sometimes, however, and I don't want to lose sight of that here. But
what's been the state's practice?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't actually know the answer to that.
Just curious. I just, you know, I think if we don't, I mean, that's, I suppose we don't until we run into a problem, and then we do. I suppose I don't know how else to deal with that.
Clayton,
Sorry,
I don't think the state does any special notices. They get a complaint and then they just process it and investigate it and just do their own independent assessment. It doesn't go to any formal notice that I'm aware of.
But as Ethan was talking, there are other things that the state notices the state sends out when applications come in. I guess my only question is, do they generally use just regular mail, or is it certified?
Mr. Chairman, board members, for instance, the 180-day filing period that was noticed to everybody on the reservation was standard mail. And that was that notice. It said, hey, if you have an existing water right that you hadn't filed with DNRC, and that, you know, this is your last chance to file for that within this 180 days of the effective date. Any of the public notices for a water right application where an objector might want to object, that's all standard mail. Forgive me for the ignorance. I think Roger is correct. I think the reason I don't know about any noticing for complaints is I don't think we ever did that. I think we just use phone calls actually more often than anything else.
That's fine. Just trying to vet it here. So Haley, is there any particular reason that we should go one way or the other from your standpoint?
No, I mean, you know, after having the conversation last meeting with the fact that even with certified, I mean, 'cause I think my preference was certified, given the timeline, in the ordinance. But apparently that also is not as effective, for, you know, prompt response, or delivery. So Ethan and I had talked about, Ethan, what was the actual name of that? And I looked it up and then just forgot it. The type of mailing where you actually have to, have a signature.
I'm also drawing a blank, but we get the idea where
Registered?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so we had talked about a couple of those things. I think, so this is a little different, again, just to touch on this. It is different than the DNRC's process. This is kind of an amalgamation of DNRC and a district court complaint. So we do have to provide notice specifically in the ordinance, and so I think we just have to be conscientious of the fact that it is a 3-day from receiving the complaint, and then it's 10 days after the notice is sent out.
So, I mean, just sort of mentally talk us through. So we use regular mail. We send out a notice and there's no response because they say they never got it.
Mhm.
What does that mean to us?
So typically, like in a district court proceeding, you'd file a complaint, and then you'd have to serve the complaint on the other party. And so that's usually the responsibility of the party filing a complaint, but here the ordinance specifies that the office gets to do that. And typically, if there's no service, then the clock does not start. So there has to be effective service on the party to start the clock, basically.
So, I mean, as I suggested, maybe if we don't, we start off with regular mail, and if something like that happens, then we follow up and do a certified mailing. I don't know.
And I think if Ken, not trying to put you on the spot here, but I do believe you brought up a good point from your own experiences where you tried to send something certified and the people just didn't accept a mail, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, not accepting is more direct and deliberate action than just saying they never got it.
Well, it's not accepting, it's just you don't pick it up.
Right. Well, same thing.
Well, not really. Not accepting requires an action. I don't choose to accept this, just you don't show up, who knows?
So relative to what we're talking about, what does that mean to you then?
Well, I think Haley makes a good point, if you're looking at, when the timeline starts to run, then proof of service is good, but at least back when I was practicing before the courts, mailing was presumed to be delivered, the legal presumption. So she makes a good point, but I don't think sending it certified is going to get it around the fact that sometimes people just don't pick up their mail because they don't want to, because they know it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Well, I equate that to denying it, but that's just me. So where does that leave us? We just go regular mail for now, and we can always change it.
That would be my suggestion.
Okay, I see Haley's.
And I think it comes down to it. If we get something returned, unable to deliver, then we regroup. And for this particular person, we may have to take stronger measures. Maybe hand deliver it.
Yeah.
I've used that technique too.
Yeah. Okay. Service. Yeah.
No, I think regular mail is appropriate. I know that's what district courts in Montana use as well. It's just regular mail.
All right.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Consensus on that? Yes. Ken,
Yeah.
Roger.
That's fine with me.
Rich. Okay. All right. Georgia.
Yes.
All right.
That's excellent guidance. Thank you so much. Now, while we're right here, James Frakes brings up the point on whether or not this notice of complaint should apply to formal and informal or both.
Well, it certainly applies to formal, but I guess the question is whether or not we want it to apply to the informal. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, board members, I think the way it's written right now, it leaves that determination kind of up to our office. Because I did specify in the informal complaint that we're not subject to that section of the ordinance. And so absent anything else, it is really left up to the office to determine how to handle it for an informal complaint. And without specifying here in this section, formal complaint, it allows us to kind of do it for both or only one, in my opinion.
Comments?
Nope.
Nope.
None for me.
I don't have any.
So you're good. Making the notice apply to the formal complaint process only.
Well, it's for sure for the formal complaint,
Right.
and an option for the informal
Yeah.
complaint. And
Yeah.
I think the nature of an informal complaint may drive that determination.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have agreement there by the board.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Solving a lot of things here. Board members, do you want to see what the notice of complaint looks like?
Can you flash it up?
Mr. Frakes is capable. It's a one pager. It would include a copy of the complaint that was filed with the office, and additionally include hearing date and time, location, manner, additional logistics. In this case, we just have my name at the bottom, but if we were to use a designee, that would change to the designee.
Okay, comments? Questions?
Nope.
None from me.
Okay, well, good, thank you.
Okay, item 6, the extension of the timeline by the parties is from the ordinance, and so we don't really need to go over that. Item 7 is something that I wrote and added in here, and it's a practical look at the timeline, in that I would like to have the option to extend the timelines to accommodate weather and access conditions. Like maybe there's some fire activity or some other reason that we can't get to the field inspections. I tried to include some time periods in here that it would be limited up to a month or until the weather/travel restriction conditions permit, whichever is longer. This Haley's not even had a chance to look at this because I just added it in here. Was that today, James?
Yes, it was.
Yes, that was. It's been a long day, Mr. Chairman, board members. Please do contemplate item 7, and
Is that the full text of 7 that we're seeing?
Yes.
yes, sir.
Okay, you said Haley hasn't seen it. Haley?
So I guess, overall, I mean, I don't see an issue with it. I think there'd just be a couple things we would want to tweak, and I think the appropriate place to put something like that would actually be like under the timing of the complaint hearing. Because the engineer designee already has the ability to extend the time for the hearing to make investigations. And so I think we could add that in specifically after that, just to say for these particular events, the extension, you know, might warrant longer time. But yeah, I don't know if it would be appropriate as just by itself.
Okay, does that make sense, Ethan?
That
James?
makes total sense. And I really just wanted to cram it in here because I wanted to force us all to visit this together.
Okay.
So Haley, you have our total support on moving this idea to wherever we need to, and we'll let you wordsmith that as long as the board members are generally in agreement with the idea.
Board members.
No problem with
Hmm.
I'm fine.
All right.
No problem. I think it's appropriate. We're discussing it on a day when we got 40 below weather.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
by tomorrow night, it is going to be 25 below. So.
Yeah.
Thank you
All
for that.
So if, you know, to jump ahead a little, so you're looking for some approval of this all today, right? So you know where you'll put that. Do we need to nail that down, or are we good?
I think, Ms. Chairman, board members, if we leave here with a good organization on how to get this all together, you know, you can either decide if you want to approve it, you know, contingent that we make these fixes and these track changes, or you can see this again. It is
Okay.
really the
All right.
board's prerogative.
Yep, just wanted to touch. All right, thanks.
Okay.
And just a real quick clarification.
Yes.
too. So, you know, I think if we have direction on all of these, just track changes that we have from our previous conversation, the board would just need to have action to, submit this for public, notice and comment. So, it's not gonna be an approved document, until after that period.
Okay.
But it still can be a working document. So
Okay.
that's the only thing that the board could take action on today for this.
That would take a next step. That's good. Good to know. Good point.
And to Haley's point, that would still board members that wanted to interact with that document during that 2-week or 15-day comment period, that you're welcome to interact with the document during that time along with the public. And sorry, I didn't do a very good job explaining that. Thank you, Haley, for jumping in to make that improvement.
No worries. Thank you.
All right, item 1 under 31-103, which is the resolution of a complaint, is the resolution of the informal complaint. And you know, the parties either on their own or at the request of the engineer may resolve the complaint informally. We had some back and forth as to whether or not you know, if they have documents that solve that either on sub 1 or sub 2, whether they have to show and share those resolution documents with our office. And what we landed on was that they don't have to necessarily share their documents of resolution with our office, but they are required to notify our office in writing that the complaint has been resolved. And so that, we think, was the solution to kind of get at everybody's different aspects. They wanted we wanted some formal understanding, the resolution's off the table. I was hoping that if they had some wacky documents that they were using to resolve it, that I didn't have to actually see those. This is an attempt to kind of sort through both of those ideas.
Comments? I guess to me, it makes sense, from a couple standpoints. One is, especially that if they're resolving it, if they submit it, it becomes part of then our record, which if we didn't generate that, I don't know that we want it. I don't know.
Right. And, the idea is like, well, I'd like them to tell us that they've resolved it, but if
Yeah.
the resolution was because Bob decided he loan his Angus bull to Earl, and that solves the issue, I don't really need to have that part of it,
Yeah. 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 Other comments?
No,
None for me.
Great.
So
thank
this,
you.
yeah, quick
Shane.
question on, yeah, that first portion of the sentence says either on their own or at the request of the engineer. Then it just goes on to talk about what we would do if they resolved it themselves. What would it look like if the office of the engineer or designee had to make the decision on their behalf? Do we need further guidance in that regard? And is an informal decision formal? I don't want to use it in that context, but is an informal decision final?
I'll do my best to explain this, and please do stress test this, but I liken it to, we might have a situation where a water right needs to be withdrawn, and an applicant comes in and files a voluntary withdrawal form. We might have a situation where our office, because of some pressing circumstances, needs to revoke a water right. And so this informal resolution, if the people who have the complaint moving forward tell us in writing that they've informally resolved it, I look at that kind of like as a voluntary withdrawal of a water right. Whereas if we don't have that resolution, then we move down lower in the chain. And I hope that I'm getting at what you're talking about, Shane, but if I missed it a little bit, please do redirect me.
Yeah, I think there, and maybe I'm thinking too much into this, but if the two parties can't come up on their own with their own resolution, and the office of the engineer or the designee needs to make that decision, what does that look like? And then two, if I could see something that was initially informal, maybe upon investigation or lack of resolution could go formal. Transition from that informality to this is all of a sudden it's a big deal. So how does that transition, and then how is the informal decision documented by the office of the engineer if they make that decision?
So
Ethan, can I just?
go ahead. Yeah, please.
Some clarification here. So this section in particular is pertaining to a formal complaint filed. This is specifically out of the ordinance. So the ordinance requires that when a formal complaint, so the 610F form is filed, that the notice has to include that wonky statement about, if informal resolution of the dispute between the parties may provide for a timely and cost-effective remedy, then, the engineer essentially requests them, or they can do it on their own to seek informal resolution. That's this section here. So it's essentially like kind of a first stab if the engineer thinks that the parties can be amicable with each other and resolve something pretty simple on a formal complaint. If not, then the engineer goes through the formal complaint process. So it would essentially go into an actual hearing before the engineer and then a final decision by the engineer.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, hold on one second. So, Shane, does that help?
Yeah, a little. It definitely helps in the formal aspect of that, but I'm still stuck in the informal side of if it's an informal complaint and Ethan needs to make kind of the tiebreaker decision between the two parties. Is there a written letter? Is there what is the mechanism that Ethan would make that decision, and how is that recorded? In our office for so it is recorded.
Yep. Yeah, and the informal complaint, because it is kind of at the discretion of the engineer, right? So if they choose to investigate, and give the informal complaint merit, essentially it would be more so just having a discussion with those parties, and that I believe was something that was put in the investigation portion, Ethan, or was it in the filing section or receiving an informal complaint?
And we
Can I-
added some,
I'm gonna ask, Shane, can I ask a quick question? So it says informal resolution, but what I'm hearing is that this is actually a piece of the formal complaint process. So maybe we just need to change that title. It says informal resolution of a formal complaint.
That's fine too, yeah.
Would that, Shane, does that make sense? Is that what you're,
Yeah, I think that's where I'm getting confused is it's using
okay,
cross terminology.
okay.
We're in the formal section, but
So it's an informal resolution, but it's part of the formal complaint process. So if that helps. So Georgia, you had something?
Just an observation and a question. So first of all, Shane, thanks for scrutinizing that more closely. Would this clarify if that phrase in the first sentence were removed? That seems to be the troublesome phrase. So if instead it read, the parties may resolve the complaint informally unless the complaint pertains to illegal use of water. And it doesn't muddy the water with that phrase saying, or at the request of the engineer. Does that help? And maybe that's a separate paragraph.
I'm fine with that. That works. Because at the end of the day, and
Doesn't
this will
matter
help.
who brought it, yeah.
Yeah, and a little bit to Shane's point, if this doesn't work out, then we go farther down the process where there's a hearing in our office, issues an order, which is a very formal resolution, of the complaint process. And so I don't know if that helps this, and that's in the pages that are coming along here where we talk about the the resolution, in that formal sense, what that's going to look like. And you can have an informal resolution possibly without even having a hearing.
So maybe look at just adding language to that title, informal resolution of a formal complaint. If we can do that, that'll help. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Georgia. Thanks, Haley. Ethan?
Thank you. Sorry, just taking some notes, make sure we get these things captured. Good job there, Mr. Frakes also. And Haley, is this sub 2, the resolution of a temporary use complaint? Is that the first part's out of the ordinance, right?
Yes, the first part is directly out of the ordinance. The kind of like second, yeah, it is a full second sentence. That was you and I drafting that.
Yep. And so these smaller resolutions don't require the lengthy findings of fact, conclusions of law effort, which will be substantial. And now, I'll ask a question of our own document, Haley. Since we're all here, under 3, the timing of the complaint hearing, it'll be interesting to orchestrate that within 3 days of getting a complaint, we need to send a notice out, a formal complaint. We have to send the notice out. The notice will have the hearing information on it. And so then that needs to somehow coordinate with the timing of the complaint hearing as well.
Yeah, so you're right in what you're saying. So you would have the 3 days after receiving the complaint to send out a notice. And if we're doing regular mail and you don't get a returned undeliverable, then it's presumed that they had service. And the clock is running like normal. So once you send that out, you would probably give like your regular account for mail, which there is a legal mailbox rule, which is 3 extra days. And you'd set the hearing date. And if they don't show, you didn't get the undeliverable receipt, then there would be actions for dismissal.
Thank you. Sorry to ask a question here myself. So I think this is pretty straightforward, and I'm happy to scroll down unless any board members have something else in that area.
Comments, questions on number 2 and number 3, anyone?
Nope.
I do say I had to read that sentence. That's quite a sentence.
Yeah, same.
Under number 2. I think after rereading it, I think it's making sense, but I had to.
We'll see if there's
I had
some
to
way
look hard at it.
we can clean that up for you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs cleaning. I'm just saying it's just. I'm looking at it. If it's meant to be readable by the public, though, might be something to think about. I think what you have, as I understand it, is fine. Just, I don't know if anybody else had the same reaction to that sentence.
Yeah, I had to read it several times too, and it's because it has a very long introductory clause. If you want to increase readability, you put the subject and verb first and then the clause second. So in other words, you would move the engineer shall enter an order allowing the diversion to continue first, and then put the explanatory clause second. So the public gets to the subject right away.
Yeah, and unfortunately, legal drafting does not abide by normal.
I'm glad you said it. I was
Yeah,
just about to say.
This is what.
I've read enough legal documents by our attorneys over the years that it's.
Yeah, it does.
I know who wrote this.
So, so what it essentially is getting at, and I think what might resolve the unreadability is actually putting it into a list format, because that's all it is. It's supposed to be just a list of sections that the engineer is to include in the order. That's all that it is. So it's not anything that the public necessarily needs to know. It's more so for the engineer's function.
That's fine. It's just that the public's going to read this, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think a list, like a colon, and then putting one background of complainant's alleged harm, which that needs an apostrophe at the end of that. You know, 2, any procedural steps taken, 3, finding that discontinuance has not had any effect. And then 4, anything else the engineer deems fit.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
And then, sorry, real quick too, sub 3 is where I suggested putting, Ethan's addition to extension of time due to, weather circumstances.
Oh, okay.
Down below that, there's the second paragraph under 3, I think is where you had it in mind. Oop.
Section.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys.
It's okay. We can doctor
All
that
right.
up
Yep.
later.
Okay.
And James, you might under the markup choose the show the markup. Yep. So we can I think that might be better so that folks can see what has changed. Anyway, that said, we can still scroll down a little bit to this section, specifically here. There was some desire for Haley to add this sentence in here: licensed to practice law in the state of Montana or the Siskiyou Tribal Court. I think that was a Board Member Pitt request, right?
I remember something about the discussion. I think Ken did raise something about that.
Well, there it is.
Are you seeing it, Ken?
Yes. I do want to mention one thing. The way it's phrased, licensed to practice law in the state of Montana or the CSKT Tribal Court, any lawyer in the country can just file and pay the $50 application fee to be admitted to the CSKT Tribal Bar. And I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure you know what you're doing.
Haley, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Oh, I was not talking. I didn't. know
Okay.
that was directed to me.
I certainly wasn't going to field this, but
No, I mean, we can certainly change that. I thought the understanding is that you do have to be licensed in Montana to apply for
Maybe, okay.
licensure. So, like if you aren't, then yeah, you can't actually practice in front of there unless you're a lay tribal advocate.
Oh, maybe I'm getting Crow and CSKT mixed up again.
okay.
It's I absolutely don't want to throw a wrinkle in, but I just dawns on me. I find it interesting. A person may appear on their own behalf or by an attorney. Well, if they're appearing on their own behalf, they're certainly not an attorney. So if they're having somebody else represent them, what difference does it make if it's an attorney? Am I making sense?
You should keep talking.
Yeah,
Explain what it means.
yeah, I guess I'm
Well,
not.
they're if they can represent themselves and they're not an attorney, if they have somebody else represent them, what difference does it make if they're an attorney? That's just dawned on me. It doesn't. I think what's in there is probably fine, but it just wondered about that just now. We're
And
saying they can represent themselves, they're not an attorney, but if you're gonna have representation, it better be a licensed attorney. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, that's just typical though in a proceeding that involves, you know, a legal process. So,
okay.
yeah, I guess I'm maybe not following.
Yeah. Well, if they're representing themselves, then maybe go back the other way. If they're representing themselves, what assurances we have or protections do we provide in that process to protect us and protect them if they're not an attorney?
Yeah, so I get what you're saying with that. I mean, they would be considered pro se in this proceeding and have the pro se protections that are afforded in all other court proceedings or hearings. You know, the attorney just affords them a little bit more protection in terms of
Yeah.
what's filed, the documents, representation in front of the engineer. So more so that, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know why, but as I read it, that's what stuck out.
it does look like we've got a little duplication of the language in this first sentence too. So maybe we'll get that cleaned up also. Maybe James, could you make a note? It looks like licensed to practice law in the state of Montana or the CSKT tribal courts in there twice somehow. But,
So what you're saying is I already had it in there?
I think it might have already been in there, or it could have been something I did. I'll tell you that. But you know,
Okay.
that's fast-paced editing for us. Thank you. The you know, the investigation of the complaint is pretty straightforward.
So Ethan, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you shared at the beginning of the meeting that there had been concern by the public to have any of their information released or available for other members of the public to see. This paragraph indicates that if a complaint is filed, the findings of the investigation shall be documented and become part of a record that's available. Does that pose a similar concern?
Yes, ma'am. And Board Member Smees, our approach for the personal information, we'll write that into the WPMP for like all actions that we do. But what we've done is we've you know, there is a definition that we use for what the personal information is, and it's more expansive than what you'd think of. And it's a definition that we lifted from the state of Montana, where it's defined as both your name and one or more of 6 other specific pieces of information that are considered to be private, such as like a social security number or a birthday or a tribal member number. None of it in the list includes your address, your phone number, or an email that you provide at our office. And so the rationale is that we are going to sort of set our standards that if for some reason we come across any of this information, we're not required to catch it on things that are submitted to our office by applicants, but we are absolutely required not to put that in documents that we create as part of the public record. And so on one hand, the first part is so that if a deed comes into our office and it has something down in a section that we're not normally reading, and it becomes part of the record, that's not so much our responsibility to catch that. We certainly, when we do find things that are like that, we do redact it, like put a line through it so that it's not furthered, but we're not required to manage that. In contrast, when we write something like an investigation of a complaint document, we really will not put any of that information in there when it's a situation that we're controlling the drafting of the document. I hope that that's not too long-winded and gets at your point.
No, that answers it. Thank you so much.
Any other comments on that number? Can we go back to 4? So given my comment, the more I think about it, I'm wondering, should we have the option of someone, let's say they don't want to represent themselves, but they don't want to hire an attorney. Can they bring in an advocate to help them? Is that allowed under this language? If not, is there a way we can allow that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we can in CSKT tribal court. That is one of the allowances for representation in front of that court. So that if the board wants to kind of follow with that, that's fine. It is not a typical representation in state court, water court, federal court. So it is specific to CSKT tribal court, but if the board would like to, that's fine. I don't know how we would necessarily check that though, because the representatives of the court that are essentially just advocates do have to be approved by the tribal court. So it can't just be somebody coming in saying, I'm going to be their advocate. They do have to have some sort of, little stamp saying, yep, they can advocate for you.
Okay, well, just thought, I don't know if anybody else is I'm willing to, and I let it go for now, but that was just a thought.
My only add on to that is I'm less concerned about it when it's people representing themselves, as opposed to this second sentence in here where it's an issue of legal entities, including but not limited to corporations and LLCs and things like that. I would prefer that to be an attorney.
Okay. I'm good.
Thanks, Mr. Frakes. Could you go down to complaint hearing? I think this was pretty straightforward to me, but Haley, did you have anything that you wanted to bring up in particular in the complaint hearing section?
No, we actually went through this section in the last meeting pretty comprehensively. And a lot of it's taken from just typical, or the documents, procedure documents we've already seen, like with the appeals and how to deal with experts. And then it does look like I do need to add at least 2 citations in those highlighted pieces. I don't know if they were deleted or not, but those 2 evidentiary standards are directly from the ordinance, so those need to be cited. That's all.
D&E, okay. Not to, once again, it says parties may call expert witness to present do the witnesses have to be expert witnesses?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of this is up to the engineer to determine who gets to present testimony.
Okay.
So I think we need to, and we did kind of chat about that a little bit in the last meeting where, you know, if we had a whole line of people trying to come in and be witnesses for, yeah, so. But I think the reason why this section in particular is in here is because an expert witness does have a higher threshold. You know, for determining what an expert or, you know, who an expert is. And so that's why this had to be spelled out in particular.
So in terms of an expert witness, the courts typically make a decision on whether or not someone's an expert. Does that mean that we will be deciding who's an expert?
Yeah,
Case
so
by case?
the engineer will, and that'll be, that's also something that he could ask as well, legal counsel of. Just since it is a more so like a legal procedure question.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Why are we limiting C only to expert witnesses? Why couldn't it say just witnesses?
Well, that gets to the question I just asked, I think. And the way I phrased it was, do they have to be expert witnesses?
Oh, okay.
But I mean, that's your question, yeah. So I don't know, Haley.
Oh, I mean, I don't think that there's any issue with doing witness or expert witness to both. There's just different standards. And then the concern that we had talked about was, you know, if we're gonna allow lay witnesses, you know, is it just gonna be anybody that can come, or does it have to be, you know, the party submitting a list to the engineer? But you know, I think it's more so what would the lay witness provide, what would the expert witness provide? So that's something that I think would probably maybe be a better question for Ethan, how he wants to, or what he's thinking in terms of the procedure of this.
Well, Ken, you asked the question for a reason. Why was that?
Well, I'm just thinking, you know, you're affording some privileges to expert witnesses that may not be afforded to a lay witness. If you had a lay witness who wanted to appear electronically under this paragraph, they may or may not be able to.
Would it, and what, one thing that's sort of rattling in my head is the way it's set right now, it's either you represent yourself or have an expert witness. So Haley, Ken, is there any, if I use this phrase, is there any legal meaning to it at all if you say subject matter witness?
Not typically, no. You know, I've never seen that used. I mean,
Okay.
this is coming, a lot of this language too is coming from like the hearings rules for DNRC when they put on a contested case hearing. So it's mainly just lay witness or expert witness are the terms used.
Okay.
It does seem like in a situation with the complaint, in a hearing on a complaint, that somebody providing witness of occurrence could be a pertinent source of information. It would almost be easier to determine whether or not information was germane to the hearing than determining whether someone is or isn't an expert. That just throwing that out there too. And I don't fully know all the answers to this yet, Mr. Chairman, board members.
Well, if the issue of witnesses, if the concern is that, we could, line up people out the door to come in and be a witness, to avoid that, one of the things we're saying is, well, they got to be an expert witness. Theoretically, somebody could line them up out the door if they're expert witness, but that means they probably have deep pockets if they're doing that. But if we allow, say, language lay witness or expert witness, maybe we, lay witness and put in parentheses somewhere, maybe we just make it clear the engineer has the ability or authority to limit the witnesses, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know if that's appropriate or not.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I think number one, the engineer is going to have a good sense, but number two, the opposing party, if they try to present a witness, it's claiming to be an expert and they're really not. I mean, the opposing party is probably not going to let them get away with that. So I'm thinking, me, I just say witness. I wouldn't say expert witness, and let the engineer figure it out.
I think if you're gonna account for everything, it should just say that the parties may call lay or or expert witnesses. And just add that in there and have it be where it's the engineer or designee's decision to allow the anticipated testimony. And there is, there is a standard, so you can only grant the participation if it will not substantially prejudice the rights of any party. And then there is a legal standard for what an expert witness is. And that's not something that, we need to put in here because that is a whole case law of standard. That's more akin to, like a document like for Ethan to look at, almost like a legal cheat sheet kind of thing. Of just how to review an expert. So I don't think that all needs to go in there, but I think we can easily tweak this section to just include lay and or expert witnesses.
Okay. Ken, Ethan, board members?
I like
that
what
sound?
Haley's suggesting.
All right.
I like
And
what she
Mr.
said.
Chairman, I'm starting to get cold in my office. I'm going to run back and get a coat.
Well, light the fire. All
It's
right.
blowing my house.
I think that helps answer my thought too. But yeah.
Yep, and I'll make sure it's accounted for in that section before we submit this for comment.
Okay.
Okay, that helps me. I think that those are good improvements, and I really appreciate everybody looking at that. The next item where we get into the timing of the decision starts to be, that's pretty lean. And when we had this discussion previously, we talked about the finding of facts and the conclusion of law in an order, and that we discussed the decision needs to be framed that way. And I did distribute some documents to the board members that are not so much in regards to decisions for complaints out of DNRC, but they are in regards to decisions for preliminary determinations of water right actions. And I hope that you got a chance to look at them, at least in light of the fact that, you know, they're 40 and 50 pages long, and those decisions. And so I want to make sure that we're able to achieve a structure, the format of findings of fact and conclusion of law, meet the 7-day deadline, and also not, you know, have me pull out the rest of my hair in the process. That what's left, you know.
Does Haley, on the timing of decision, as we listen to what Ethan is saying, is there no option or opportunity to extend that in a cases, you know, maybe it's needed?
You know, I don't see anything in the ordinance that allows for that. I think it would have to be a pretty, you know, high threshold to do that. I mean, these deadlines in here are particular, especially in this process. The one thing I do want to just communicate is, you know, not all findings of fact, conclusions of law are that long. I mean, I've had ones that go from 2 pages to 8 pages, and they've gone up to the Montana Supreme Court on appeal. So, you know, they've been very successful documents, but in a very short amount, you know, a very small amount of pages. So I don't think we should, you know, really look to that length of 40 to 50 as being the typical length in this certain circumstance, especially with resolving a complaint. I think it would be more akin to when the like permitting hearings and appeals come about, and like the change in use hearings and appeals, because those involve a lot more fact intensive analysis on the engineer, whereas here it's not necessarily that.
Okay. Other thoughts, comments, questions on timing of decision? Okay, we're getting there.
All right, Mr. Frakes, could you take us down to the next section? Or yeah, right in here. This is the section that helps to may include but not limited to structure the decision, and that's right out of the ordinance. So that all makes sense. The emergency enforcement powers of the engineer. I do believe this is not highlighted in yellow, but we discussed why we got a few items, but that's right out of the ordinance. I always am surprised when I read that. The additional enforcement powers of the engineer. And I don't know, I think this was also just right out of the ordinance, so we don't have anything really to modify here.
Ethan, we did have a comment, I thought, on at least A, with regard to having the engineer's office potentially utilize the correct jurisdictional enforcement.
Right.
So like whether it be, Montana or CSKT, police.
We lose that comment somehow?
Yeah, I don't know, but we did have there was a discussion over on the side on that particular topic.
I'm not seeing any additional comments on this.
Maybe not. I do remember some of the discussion though.
And Haley came up with an elegant way to phrase it. Somehow it got lost. I think you had drafted that in a comment, and apologies, I'm not sure how that happened, but
So on the fly, is there something you can explain here?
I'm just trying to pull it up.
Yeah, so yeah, I just put in like an extra sentence based on our conversation from the last meeting saying that, the Office of the Engineer reserves the right to utilize, the like jurisdictional police force, to properly enter lands, with reasonable notice.
The jurisdiction of, let's see, how is it safe for the court of competent jurisdiction, or the jurisdiction of?
No, just based on the jurisdiction, I'm not gonna define a term that doesn't make any sense.
Makes sense. Any other comments?
I actually think, Mr. Chairman, board members, that's most of the stuff that I had to really go over with this particular document. I think if you're feeling comfortable, you could direct us to make these changes and kick this
The public comment?
out for public comment, sir.
Okay. Board members, you ready to do that?
Yep.
Just quick clarification again, and
Okay.
I hate to bring us back to the beginning, but I was just thumbing through so you can see the whole document. I was scrolling through it. And I was still struggling a little bit with that. Right at the beginning, I guess the first 1 or 2 pages, and how it includes the informal component and the formal together, and then the informal ends basically at page 1. So which is okay. After I read the whole document, it makes a little more sense. But maybe the title of that 31-103, a resolution of complaint, that could be changed to resolution of the formal complaint of 103, 31-103. Because from there on, we're really talking about the formal complaint, not up above that. We're kind of mixing informal and formal in the sections above that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think not only readability, but understanding and clarity, I think, is important. So, yeah.
On that front, we can do that, but we'll probably want to bracket formal. And the rationale is because the bold titles next to the WPMP are the language taken directly out of the ordinance. And so I think if we just put the bracket around there to let everybody know that we're not trying to rewrite, but rather clarify.
Okay. Does that help, Shane?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, board members, are you ready for this to go out for public comment
Sure.
with the changes that we discussed today?
I am.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Ethan, Haley, do we need action to do that?
Yes.
Okay. We'll take a motion to move this item to to public comment, to allow and authorize the staff to send this out for public comment. And how long do we send it out? 2 weeks or a month?
15 days.
15 days?
Yep.
Okay. So if you're ready, we'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Rich?
Quick question, where will we advertise this at? Just on our website or the 2 local papers?
No, so based on the resolution, that the board approved, a couple meetings back, these types of procedural documents will be published on the website. And there's a specific tab, that James actually was able to figure out. It looked very nice. I checked out the last one. And all you would do is if you can download it right there, so public can go on there, download those documents. And then they would send an email via the contact@frwmb.gov, which is right on that page too.
Thank you.
So to Rich's point, it's only on the website or it gets published elsewhere?
No, just on the website.
Okay.
Well, I'd make a motion, but I'm not real sure how to phrase it.
Well,
Because it
why don't
says-
you run something by us? Let's see what we get.
Well, here's my confusion. It says, number 6 talks about discussion of complaint process, but we were talking about. No, we were talking about the complaint process, not the appeals process. Okay, I'll make a motion that the board place the appeal process document out for public review and comment as modified on this date.
You use the word appeal. Is that adequate?
I took it back. Don't make me repeat that because I already forgot what I said.
But you're talking about complaint. Motion to move the complaint
Second by Rich.
process document to public comment by Ken, second by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No?
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I believe you should open it up for public comment for whoever's attending right now.
Oops.
Thought about that, but we're sending it out for public comments. I wasn't sure. So, but that's fine. If there's any public comment, we'll hear it now.
If any of the attendees would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand. I'm seeing no public comment.
All right. Looks like we're to item number 8. Butterfield.
Just to make sure I'm clear on the last action, did we also include forms 609 and 610 in that, or are we just taking it off? I just want to make sure my notes are clear. That was 6.2.
But we haven't
We
looked
did
at those forms.
We did approve the process. We didn't specifically say 609 or 610F. Do we need to tackle those? And would they go to public comment with the process?
No, so the resolution only pertains to procedures of the office of the engineer or the board.
Okay.
The forms have just been adopted by the board during meetings.
Okay, do you need anything more from us on the form 609 and 610F and 610F?
Mr. Chairman, board members, I think we're going to be just fine using the process. We will include the notice document as it is specifically referenced, but the forms, as Haley mentioned, that'll follow suit, and you will need to check to make sure that they adequately handle the complaint. And I see we wrote process but needed to write procedure in the appendices. But we'll tackle that at the end of the 15-day comment period and make sure that the 609F and 610F also meet the board's expectations at that time.
So have we seen draft copies of those before?
You have had, Mr. Chairman, board members, you had a draft copy of the complaint form in front of you multiple times. This is different because at our last meeting, the board requested to have informal and formal complaint forms. And so, Mr. Vice Chairman, this would be a little more unique in that you don't have one single complaint form that you've seen before. We bifurcated that as per your direction at the last meeting.
And I think we also wanted to make sure the process is in place before we finally approve the form. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. We did want for completeness to have those forms available for you during this discussion. So that's also why they're there. But I do track exactly what Haley's saying, that really this 15-day period is for the procedures themselves. The form will be a after the fact administrative tool for those procedures.
And we'll adopt those then. So I think we're good either way. All right, thank you. All right, next item.
Okay, James, would you pull up the form 620F for me?
Yeah, working on that right now.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Okay, so this form is intended to be used in the case that we need to address ownership on an application. So this form specifically pertains to like a change in applicant. Should property change hands, or should the applicant decide that maybe they don't want to do a shared well? And it's hard sometimes to go through DNRC to address those issues, especially with current database access and just like getting things up and running. So this form is kind of like a pseudo way for us to address applicant owner issues on applications before they become like full-blown issued water rights.
Jesus.
And so it does a couple things. It looks relatively similar to like the DNRC form 608. But this form is very specific. It's only for applications that are not finalized and that are not like an actual water right yet. They're just still in the process pending stage. And there's, situations already that we've had to deal with this. So we're just trying to get ahead of that issue by having a form for folks to do this. So ideally, it'll only apply to like one application at a time. Should a property sale happen or something along those lines, it'll just be multiple applications for each water right to be addressed. And then James, can you go down?
Mm-hmm.
So then we also have a declaration of ownership. So the idea behind this is that we're trying to divest the original applicant of any responsibility that comes with submitting an application, like drilling the well within our timelines and finishing the project. So this is a way, ideally, for people that assume property to acknowledge that they're also assuming the responsibilities that come with that property purchase.
You want to keep scrolling so we can just finish seeing the document?
I think it's only
No.
the 2 pages.
That was it? Okay. Um, Filing fee $40.
Yes, so since this isn't an ownership update exactly, we don't necessarily believe we have to follow the DNRC like ownership update fee schedule on this one. And then Ethan and I went back and forth on the fee on this one a little bit. So if he wants to explain why it's 40 specifically, I can let him kind of dive into that.
Mr. Chairman, board members, difficult to decide what kind of a fee should be imposed on a thing that's not quite a water right yet. However, it does take administrative time out of our day to make this switcheroo. So we thought we should include something in here. Anna was a little higher. I was, when I wrote it at 40, I was like, that seems high to me. It was a little bit subjective, but and I had a small glitch while Anna was talking, and I'm not sure if she mentioned, but one of the key reasons that we would like to have this form is that under the realization that when somebody applies for a new domestic use, they may have up to 2 years from the application, the first part of the application, to the completion of that application, just for an individual domestic use. So occasionally within 2 years, property changes hands, and that is maybe one of the aspects. I don't know if that got covered, but want to make sure you realize why we think this is needed.
And I don't see a particular issue right offhand, but I'm assuming you're that this would apply to both fee and trust property.
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is primarily targeted at fee property as of now, and it doesn't mean that we wouldn't accommodate some ownership changes of trust property, but we are still working through how to structure certain water right elements on trust property. And so I don't want to get out ahead of the work we're doing with the tribal water rights folks. And this may very well apply, but given the trust nature of those other properties, they might need something more specifically tailored to meet those objectives.
Yeah, and so they'll see this, and you'll get a chance to work with them on this and see if there's anything they can add.
Absolutely, and we have got to enjoy working directly with the tribal water right folks to develop towards the development of some of those details on how tribal water rights will be handled. So I would anticipate if they had some thoughts that we needed to address, we'll certainly do our best to incorporate that.
Of course, the biggest challenge would be in the category of the undivided interest tracts, but the sort of bigger picture items would be anything that goes from trust to fee or fee to trust, or anything that transfers from tribal trust to individual trust, or individual trust to tribal trust. Those would be the sort of the big picture items. But yeah,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and also how the water right originated, because certainly for something like registration or something that is applied for on trust properties as tribal water right, it gets a little more complicated as to what happens with the water right ownership.
mhm.
They don't necessarily track that transition to fee ownership like the property, and still working through those details.
Yep. Well, that's why I asked. Appreciate it. Any other comments, questions?
No,
Can I just ask one,
Yes.
or, yeah, one question? So, I have a couple things that I just wanna look over on some time outside of this, on this document. So I was curious if this could be just put on for the next, meeting.
Absolutely. Don't see any reason why not. Board members?
We do have a comment coming in from Ben with the DNRC as well.
Okay. Ben,
fine.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
we hear you.
That's fine.
Yep, Ben Uwaki with DNRC. Just want to mention that all ownership updates are under the jurisdiction of DNRC, where water rights fall under fee lands. So we might have to discuss this document.
Sounds like there's a need to discuss it under Haley's concerns anyway. So yeah, all right.
Okay.
Mr.
If I-
Chairman, I'd also like to clarify that this is probably going to be like a temporary solution until we can like get our water rights into the database, just because like right now there's no way for DNRC to track when there's a sale of property or something on one of our water rights like they normally would within their systems. So ideally, this is kind of a Band-Aid until we can get our water rights into the database, but that is kind of an important detail behind this form.
Okay. Well, I'll suggest that we go ahead and just allow this to be moved forward to a future agenda, unless I hear anything different from board members right now.
Nope. Think for me.
That sounds fine for me.
Yep.
All right. All right. Well, that takes care of item number 8. And it is 10 minutes to 6, and I don't know how much further you guys want to go. Would you like to start on any of the water policy procedures or not, board members?
For me, I would not, because I have to cook somebody dinner at 6.
Oh, thank you for coming over and cooking dinner.
Probably not.
Yeah,
You know.
this seems like a good time to wind up.
All right,
Yeah.
so we'll take any final public comments.
If anybody wants to make a comment, raise your hand. I'll allow you to speak. Seeing none.
Going once, going twice. Any other final board member comments?
No,
No.
No.
All right. Next meeting is set for January 16. We're still good with that? 1 to 5,
Yes.
Yes.
barring any weather disasters. Okay, thank you all for your time.
sorry.
And yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I do, I'm gonna need to send out a notice for the meeting tomorrow for the 16th.
Okay.
So I if you will, please forgive, but we could either pick up item 9, that would be something that we could work on at this next meeting, which is got still some excuse me, some substantial work. We could move shift gears over to the personnel policy, if the board would prefer still some substantial work to do on the personnel policy. I stand for whatever your preference is, but do need a little direction so that we can get the word out appropriately for the January 16th meeting.
Board members, what do you want to hit on?
I guess my preference would be to work on the water policy and procedures. We've got those domestic developments kind of languishing in there, so it'd be nice to get that part of it wrapped up.
Okay. Sound good, guys?
Yes.
Sure, that's fine with me.
Okay, you got it. That's a consensus.
Thank you for that brief addition, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Roger,
I'll
Second.
second.
second by Ken. All in favor, say aye.
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 You all have a safe and warm weekend.
Yeah.
See you. If I don't hear from you before then, we'll see you on the 16th.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.